Hi, everybody. Very warm welcome to the 14th episode of Immigration Buzz by Adnan and Shariq. A very warm welcome to all of you from myself, Hassan Shariq from Toronto, and my colleague Adnan from Calgary. Hope everybody's doing well wherever in the world you are. And continuing with our tradition of talking about specific topics of Canadian immigration, this time around, our focus is on skilled migration topics right now. And as in the last session, we did education credential assessment, which is a fundamental step if you would want to consider applying for Canadian skilled migration. Today, we are going to talk about proof of funds, which is again a topic that people have a lot of interest in. It is very vital because if you're applying for a skilled migration, you are required to show proof of funds, and there's a lot of confusion about it. So what we'll do is that initially we'll discuss the proof of funds for about 10 to 15 minutes. After which, in the second session, we'll take questions and comments from our attendees. So to start off with proof of funds, I'll hand it over to Adnan. Adnan, how are you?
I'm doing fine, Hassan. Today is very chilly in Calgary. It's -2 outside. So, kind of enjoying the weather, staying positive,
Yeah.
and moving forward.
Yeah. We haven't had snow yet here in Toronto. There was a bit of snow in London, Ontario. But yeah, temperatures they're still not in minus. It's been chilly over here as well. But we can't
Awesome.
compete with you in terms of
No,
having.
for sure. You cannot even think about it. So, awesome. So, welcome everyone. Today, very interesting topic on proof of funds. And for the reason we decided to do a session on this, we saw a lot of confusion happening in some of the groups we have seen about proof of funds, they're going to manage and stuff. So, we will talk very lightly what is this subject about, and we will appreciate if you have questions. Feel free to ask on this particular topic, and we will address it. So let's start with it. Just let's start with the definition. What is proof of funds? Okay, so very generally, why it is needed. So proof of funds is how you show that you have enough money to settle in Canada. Of course, you are coming from another country, so you need to show some, monetary things to Canadian officials that give them confidence that you have this much funds available and you can come and live your life while you are settling yourself and your family inside Canada. Okay, so this is the basic definition. The next question is who does not need proof of funds. So what I did actually here, instead of writing who needs proof of funds, I have just taken out who does not need it, because who does not need it is very short a category of people inside it. So anybody who is not being defined here, they definitely need proof of funds. So persons who are applying through Canadian Experience class. All right. So you know that in IRCC we have three federal programs: federal skilled worker class, Canadian experience class, and federal skilled trade class. So if you are applying on Canadian experience class, you does not need to show proof of funds. Okay. So this is one thing. Second is the people who are authorized to work in Canada, like who are already in Canada, they are working, they have a job offer, right? So they do not need the proof of funds. Any other person who does not fall into these particular two categories, you need to show proof of funds and you have to maintain it. Okay. So that is very, in a summarized way, I think the message is clear who needs and who does not need. All right, let's jump to the next slide. So for proof of funds for whom, like we are going to show like this much money. So if you are a single individual applicant, so you need proof of funds for you. If you are coming with your partner, your wife, your spouse, then you need to show proof of funds for yourself and for your partner. And similarly, if you have dependent people, dependent children, so you need to keep on adding all those people who are basically going to attach in your application. Okay. So this is again very generally how many people you have to consider in your application. The last point is a little bit wordy. So let me clarify that spouse and dependent children, even if they are permanent residents or Canadian citizens, not coming to Canada with you, that is tricky. But we still need to like tell you about it. So Even if you are outside Canada, you are coming to Canada as a permanent resident, you have already a person in Canada, they reached, but you still need to show the proof of funds for two people, not for a single individual who are coming to Canada. This is different than the sponsorship. We are not talking about sponsorship. Sponsorship is a completely different thing. This is the proof of funds we are talking about for the people who does not fall into the sponsorship category. That is where you need proof of funds for those. Right, let's jump to the next one. How much money you will need? So this is the very latest chart available on IRCC website. They revise these number every year. So again, like if you are a single member, you need approximately 13,213. Two, it similarly goes on increasing up to seven is 34,000, and then for each additional family member, you keep on adding 3,560. Remember, this change every year. So if you have an express entry profile for this year and you are a single person, you indicated exact number of funds. Next year, once this table is revised on IRCC website, you need to go back, change your profile to match the proof of funds with the latest number. Otherwise, your application, your profile will not be picked up. So this
Not,
happened. Yeah.
yeah, not just picked up. Like if normally, because of the this is revised every year, but because of the COVID situation, they actually did not revise it for a while, and then they revised the amount. They actually gave a grace period by which you have to update. And I personally know that there are people who did not update, like they had put in the minimum necessary funds, which previously, like for a single person, was 12,800 something. And people did not change this, and because of this, their profile was kicked out of the pool. Because if you don't, if you've not mentioned this amount of funds, then you don't meet the minimum eligibility. So it is very important that you make an update as soon as it is required.
Actually, Hassan, yesterday I found like came across the same situation where the person he transferred from, I think he submitted his profile by himself, but he transferred it to my portal. And when I was reviewing his express entry profile, I have noticed that he indicated 13,000 Canadian dollar in the proof of funds, which means he was not going to pick it up. The difference
Yeah.
is only $213. But these small things, if it is go unnoticed, it's going to have a damage on the future planning and all that stuff. So you need to be very careful on this particular situation. Okay, Hassan. So now, I would like to talk about, the some of the confusions in the people they are talking about it on proof of funds. So let's have a discussion between you and me.
Yeah.
I will ask in a question format and we'll answer like together. Maybe it's more understanding for the people.
Yeah.
So the thing is, you need to look into proof of funds from two perspectives. One is the federal programs, which are federal skilled worker class, Canadian experience class, federal skilled trade class. They have a requirement of proof of funds, like you have to maintain for 6 months of period, which is usually they recommend. Now for provincial, when you're going for a PNB, those are different. So first of all, you need to understand these two have a different timelines, different
Yeah.
situation, different scenarios. Now, when we talk about federal programs, when they say you need to maintain 6 months proof of fund, now people they say, okay, when I'm going to start express entry, should I keep these funds available with you? The answer is yes, of course. Reason, you don't know in express entry when your profile is going to pick up. Like maybe it's just 1 week after you finish your express entry profile, maybe it is 2 weeks. So what will happen if you receive an invitation to apply and you do not have that particular bank statement available for last 6 months? You need to let go the ITA, because officer is not going to let go easily, because it's an officer discretion at the end, but
Yeah.
we have not seen success in that particular thing. So you, once you are coming and putting your profile on express entry, make sure you have that 6 months of balance available depending on this table which we have indicated. Keep it in your bank account, like just on a side, so that it's readily available, and you can cash it, like you can show it whenever it is required. Maybe you don't receive an ITA for 6 months. Yeah, it could happen, but you still need to maintain those funds. Like you cannot just say, okay, once I receive ITA, I will make my bank statement. I will just put the funds, dump the cash here. I will take gifts from my relatives, brothers, sisters, and I will show bank statement. Guys, that does not go well with the immigration officials. I'm telling you from my experience here as well. So you need to make sure once you think about express entry, you have to have your bank statement or your proof of funds, like these number of dollars available in your account or your spouse account. If you are both an applicant, it's fine, but you need to maintain that you have these funds available. Now this is express entry. When we come to provincial nominee program, those requirements vary from one province to the second province. For Saskatchewan, it is different. For Prince Edward Island, it is different. For Newfoundland, it is different. For Alberta, it is different. But for example, few of the provinces which require you to show expression of interest after submitting your express entry profile, they are actually asking you for a declaration there that you confirm you have these funds available in your account while you are creating an expression of interest also. So you cannot just declare it there that you have these funds available, but you do not have those funds available like in the other way. So that is actually misrepresentation. And we have also seen cases got refused because of this particular reason. So
And
the
misrepresentation has a 5-year bar. So
yes.
if it is misrepresentation, then for the next 5 years you cannot submit any application with Canadian immigration.
Yeah, exactly. So, if the nutshell, the summarized way of saying it, when you think about Canadian immigration, any stream, like take whatever stream you want, make sure you have proof of funds available. You have this money in your bank account, just staying there, not being touched. It's not like going way back in the limit and then it's jumping back again like a dump cash or something. You need to make sure you have these funds available to avoid any problem. And the reason,
Yeah.
again, Hassan, if you can emphasize on the timeline thing, because express entry people usually go into express entry, they do not have bank statement available, and sometimes if you got lucky, you got an ITA within 2 weeks and their profile is rejected afterwards. They have to let go, they cannot avail it. This is an important message, and then we will talk about like what forms of things they can show in bank statement. Okay.
Yeah.
But Hassan, if you can please emphasize on
Yeah.
that, this is an important message.
Yeah. This is see, as Adnan, you mentioned rightly, so that it depends on what category, what stream are you looking at. The proof of funds. I think the first important thing to keep in mind is that ideally you should have these parked in your bank account for at least 6 months uh, from the date of your application. Now, the important thing is that a lot of people ask question as to when. So, say for instance, like I'll take the example of Saskatchewan, because Saskatchewan is pretty strict when it comes to having the proof of funds. When you're submitting your application for the provincial nomination with the province of Saskatchewan, you must have those funds available in your bank account or in your financial institution for at least 6 months before that. They usually don't accept any alternatives to it. Um, when it comes to maybe some other provinces, like I know for Ontario, even express entry, yes, again, ideally speaking, you have to provide it for 6 months. If it is there, it has been there for like 6 months, then absolutely no issue, no questions will be asked. If it is not there for 6 months, there can be solutions, but a lot of times people ask that, okay, so what's the solution for that? Now the solution for that is not a blanket solution that you can provide. It will depend on each individual's case. The important test, the legal test that is there, is for two things. The funds that you are showing as your funds, they should be, you have to prove that it is your ownership for that funds. They are not owned by anybody else other than your spouse, in the case that it is a joint application. Um, and you have access to these funds. So if you can prove these two things, then all those solutions which can be applicable in, say, for express entry or for Ontario, or maybe Alberta PNP, they can come into picture, but they'll vary from individual to individual. Like somebody might have, so say for instance, if it's a married couple and they require say $16,449, and their account has had say $15,000 or $14,000, it is only a shortfall of $2,000. Maybe they can show that through some other way. They might have a provident fund, or they might have some term deposits. They can be joined. So important to keep them for 6 months. If they're not there for 6 months, for some programs, there's no absolutely no option. For some programs, there can be solutions, but that will depend on individual cases, and that's where you need to discuss it with the professional as to what can be submitted and how you explain your case. Because
Exactly.
if you've kept a vacuum, it is officer's discretion. A very important term that Adnan has used. It is officer's discretion. If by your documents it's not clear that these funds are your own ownership and you have access to them, they can say a goodbye to your application, and then you go to ground zero.
Exactly, because no one wants to challenge or go into the domain of officer.
Yeah.
If you go by book, go by principle, go by the rules and regulations in place, it's better. But if you are asking the officer to let go some of the requirement because you have not like complied with it, it's a challenging thing to do.
Mm.
It can go positive, it can go negative. So then you have to get ready for the results as well.
Yeah.
Um, I know that there is a lot of myths going into the market right now that, okay, let's create an express entry profile, and if we got an idea, we will prepare the bank statement or we'll bring the bank statement and we will, you know, let go, like just went with it. But you know, there are very few people, lucky people, who are getting an ITA nowadays.
Yeah.
Who wants to risk with it? Like really, who wants to risk with it? So if you have money, it's advisable. You just keep it aside in a bank. You can keep it in your name. You can keep it with your spouse name if she's an applicant. You can do one more thing. You can maybe somebody he is living overseas but he has a bank account, for example, in any other his country of residence. You can open a bank account with your father, but your name should be there. It cannot be on a father name. It cannot be only on the mother name. It has to be with your name. You can join it, but you have to stay on the bank account title holder. You have to have your name there. All right, so this is very important. Now for provincial programs, the requirements are different. It's not 6 months. For some it is 3 months, it is 4 months. But when it comes to federal, it is like tied up with 6 months ideally. So you need to make sure that all these timelines and everything is being maintained so that your file goes smoothly there. I know that people think about it, it's like stucking a money and just keeping it on the side. But most of the people, they have some ways with the bank, like in the way there are programs from the bank in which they go for a savings account or something. I don't know much about the banking side, but you need to have those funds readily available in cash, not locked in any contract term. Okay, so it's available for you. You cannot invest into stocks, for example, and then show as a proof of funds. It's not going to work. You cannot invest into cryptos and then bring it like you have this funds available in cryptocurrency. It does not work fine because it's not being defined in the IRCC books of rules. So you need to have a bank statement, bank account, like these kind of financial institutions, like reports and maintenance certificates and all that. So I hope the message is clear, Hassan. I think we can start taking questions. I think we elaborated, and then once we have questions, we will go into more detail.
Yeah. So let's start off. We have Faisal. Faisal is saying salam. Walaikum salam, Faisal. Hope everything's fine at your end. We have a question which is kind of unrelated. Malik is saying, any suggestions about low-cost universities related to business or electronics, because I have lost hope in FSW. Adnan, would you want to?
Uh, I don't believe in losing hope. I always believe in putting 100% and keep staying positive. So if FSW draws can start, who knows, anytime can start, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months, nobody knows. But important is if you are already in express entry pool, stay in the game, keep your profile active. You don't know when this luck will struck and you will have this opportunity. When it comes to low cost universities, so I'm not like advocating here any university or something, but usually on Atlantic sides, the fees are less for some of the universities. You can look into those particular four provinces: Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, Labrador, Prince Edward Island, and New Brunswick. So these four provinces usually have some institutions which are lesser in cost compared to Ontario or compared to British Columbia. Those are expensive institutions there. So you can do some research on that. There is a website I don't have in front of me right now, but maybe once we do a session on study permit side or something, um, if you are attending there, ask me and I will bring that link, or I will, if I remember, I will bring that link, because that website actually summarize all the fees cost of all the universities in one like single view, so it's easy for you to compare and contrast where you have to go.
Perfect. So I think most of the other comments are for our topic. So let's start. So Shahid Mahmood is saying show only bank statement.
You can take it as
Yeah. Shahid, again, it varies. If you, it depends on the stream, on the category that you're applying for. Bank statement is the ideal form because the bank account is going to be in your own name, or probably if you're married, maybe a joint account between you and your spouse. It cannot be a joint account with anybody else. And because with the bank account, the benefit is that it is usually very liquid. So right away, whenever you feel like you can write a check and you can have access, you can withdraw that money. And also it clearly shows that this is your own bank account. The money is yours. It's not anywhere else. So ideally speaking, yes, bank account is the idea. Now I'll actually there's a lot of other documentation that can be in between, but I'll go to the other extreme. Just to explain, a lot of people say that I have real estate, like I have a house, I have a plot, I have a car. Can that be used as proof for funds? No, it has to be liquid assets. So it can be cash in bank. But say, for instance, if you have like a term deposit, again, not stocks, which is volatile, but a term deposit, that can be used. Um, to answer, um, ideally bank statement, but anything like close to it, that might work. And for certain streams, like again, Saskatchewan seems to be our favorite when we're talking of the streams where you don't have a lot of alternatives. They have very clearly mentioned as to what can be accepted. So yes, bank statement is the only form. Next up, Faisal.
Hassan, you actually wrap it up in a very good words, but I want to be straightforward. Show only bank statement comment. Yes, it should be bank statement. There is no if and buts with that. You are good with that, wrapping the thing, Hassan, and presenting it. But I'm very straightforward. It's a bank statement. It should be bank statement.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so Faisal is asking, so it means against the proof of funds, if person applying from Pakistan, he must have required funds, like if 13,200, he must have 13,500 to meet exchange fluctuation.
No,
Yeah.
no. So the answer is no. If it is a required 13213, you can enter 13213 exactly
Yeah.
in the express entry profile. What you need to do is you need to make sure equivalent currency in any bank account. Like if you are using Indian rupees, Pakistani rupees, Bangladeshi taka, like whatever currency you are using, make sure the equivalent amount is there. So if, like for example, currency is getting devalue, so you need to bump up your balance to make sure you have equivalent of this as per that particular day you get your ITA.
And also one important thing is that, see, when you're creating your express entry profile, or your profile somewhere else, that's that's where you mention this Canadian dollar amount. So the requirement is Canadian dollars, 13,213. The fluctuation that happens to a different currency. So you don't need to change the Canadian dollar amount. You will require at the time of submission of your application, you will require at least 13,213. So um, like right now, if you put 13,500 dollar equivalent, and the exchange rate even goes worse, even the $13,500 at this particular time will not work. So important thing is that it should be equivalent to this amount. And one pro tip that I'll give over here, and I'm giving this as a free of cost, when applications are submitted, make sure that you provide that equivalence as part of your application as well, because the officer doesn't know what's the exchange rate. and they want to look at 13,213 Canadian dollar for a single person, and whatever is the amount. So that's very important to present as to what the equivalent amount is. Faisal has a question: if person debt heavy amount just before an idea, how the amount can be justified?
Let me answer this one. I want to answer very straightforward, in a very straightforward way. Uh, Faisal, the thing is, if government is asking you to maintain proof of funds, you have to maintain proof of funds. There is no if, there is no but, there is no any average answer with that. It's either yes or no side. If you have a debt, you need to. It's your personal problem, like of that particular client. Canadian officials are not going to entertain these kind of situations. They want you because they're thinking you are coming to another country. What they're worried about, you should not become a burden on the Canadian economy. That is their first thing is, right? So they want you to have this money and then you immigrate to Canada. This is their, like, ideally this is what they are looking for, and this should be happen. You cannot immigrate to another country with no money in your pocket.
Yeah.
Canada is an expensive country. It's you need to maintain, you need this money at least for the initial 6 months until you properly settle yourself down. Like if you have kids, your kids benefit will kick in. Government will give you some grant or something, like any other things which is in the program available at that time. But for the initial period, you have to have this money also to make sure your bread and butter is going on at home. So yes, if you have a debt, that is not the concern of IRCC officials. The proof of funds should be maintained.
Yeah, yeah. And a very important thing to highlight over here is that a lot of times, because there are applicants where they're applying as non-accompanying spouse, or maybe it doesn't matter. The proof of funds means that you have enough money, even if you move to Canada on your own. You as an individual will be looking for your job or work in Canada, and there is going to be a transition period, and probably you leave your work, your job, your employment back home. But your financial needs for yourself as well as your family who's not traveling with you still stay the same. So you need to have enough funds that you cover your cost as well as you're able to cover your family's financial needs back home. So that's what the proof of funds is. If you have debt, you have to clear that. Otherwise, the government feels that you might land and then you might ask for social welfare. And do keep in mind that the requirement for proof of funds is at the time of submission of your PR application till the time that a final decision is made, and actually even at the time that you do your landing. So when you land, it's a different department, it's a different entity, which is CBSA, the Canadian Border Services, and they are working on your PR finalization at that time. And there's a small interview, call it an interview, a few questions. They can definitely ask you for proof of funds at that time. That do you have access? So it doesn't really end just with the application. Mm, we have a couple more questions. Asif has asked for how much time we need to put these funds in our account. I think we've kind of answered
I
that
think one
already.
timeline we can define. For example, you receive an ITA on, let's say, 1st of January. Okay. Now, what's going to happen? You receive an ITA. Now, when you are preparing your bank statement, you have to go 6 months backward from that particular date, 6 months back, because officials are going to look into the 6 months period, the day you submit your application, your ITA received. That is what you need to maintain. And the tricky part is no one knows when an ITA will come.
Yeah.
So you do not want to deal with, situation like that when somebody entered express entry profile, does not have these proof of funds available in the bank account, no account was being maintained, and you receive an invitation to apply and you have to let go. That is once in a lifetime opportunity. Who knows next draw when will happen? Nobody knows. It's so much uncertainties right now on this particular system. So don't take your chances on this thing.
Yeah.
It's not something to challenge yourself on.
Yeah, just today on this very topic, Adnan, just today I was in the morning, I was talking to a client, and they had their FSWP ITA in December 2020, the last FSWP draw that happened. And they submitted the application and they did not submit the required documentation and it was declined. it did not move beyond the completion check, the R10 check, you know. Uh, and since then they've been waiting. No FSWP draw happened. Like everything was in place. They only missed out on attaching some important documents. R10 check. It was returned back, and now they've recently like they're working with me, and they've received an invitation for Ontario, and they were still asking if we should wait for FSWP or not. So right now the situation is you cannot take a chance on these things. So with that, I think
There is one more question. I think Hassan.
yeah, Faisal has a question which is pretty much like
Same.
same. Account
Yeah.
maintenance is must for 6 months, whether PR application is submitted in any immigration stream. So, Faisal, if it is a skill migration, I think it is good that we clarify that. If it's skill migration, that's where proof of funds is required. If, say, for instance, somebody is applying under family class, that's not where proof of funds is required. So, important thing, PR stream or PR immigration stream can be various. Like you could have your parents or grandparents or your spouse or dependent children. That's not required over there. They have a different requirement. The sponsor has to show
We are
that.
not going to discuss that because
Yeah,
people will get confused.
confused.
But I think just for today discussion point of view, we are talking from the skilled migration uh, streams.
Yeah,
So take just proof of fund. Hassan was pointing towards these sponsorship applications, which we are going to cover in another session, and we will talk about. There is no term of proof of funds there. There is another term which is called LICO. We will do a separate session on that to clarify for the sponsorship applications inside Canada, or if the applicant is outside Canada, how it's going to work. But for today, I think proof of funds we try to cover. Again, apologies from our side. There is no way around with like these fund thing. And I know people discuss so many scenarios. I have money coming from this particular person. How I'm going to manage it? Should I get a gift certificate or something? Visa officer discretion is very tough when you are challenging visa officer to review something of your personal problems. Believe me, does not go well. So you don't go into that particular area. Try to stay with what IRCC has recommended on their website as a rules and regulation. I hope the message is clear. Hassan emphasized a lot. I'm emphasizing a lot, and this is just for we want to help you guys not to have these mistakes once FSW draw started or any other like streams you are waiting for. So make sure this subject is very clear.
yeah. I think that's about it. We've tried to clarify as much as possible, but as I mentioned previously as well, that if it is not exactly by the book, there can be solutions, but then those are case specific. If a solution can work for one person, doesn't mean that the same can work for somebody else. And Also keep in mind that this important legal term of officer discretion. Each officer has a different way of handling these things. Like if it is by the book, then they sort of deal with it in the same way. But if it is slightly off that mark, then each officer can handle it in a different way. It depends from which country those documents were submitted, what is the overall picture of, say, proof of funds and all that. And it can be accepted, it can be rejected, you might be given an opportunity. So that is where if somebody is in that kind of boat, they can always get in touch with a professional, like an RCIC or immigration lawyer, and see what could be done. So with that, we'll ask for leave for today. Hopefully, we've been able to add some value again to your immigration plans. Feel free to post further questions and comments, provide your feedback, do support the platform by liking, subscribing, sharing, so that other people can benefit as well. Before we leave, we'll usually, as we leave you with a video about Canada, about our services. So we'll leave with that, and take care of yourself and your families, and we'll see you in a week's time. Bye bye.